What's up, folks? Welcome to Ichabod. It's that time. So come on into the chat and let's get ready to get into it. I'm your host, Be Good, and today we are taking calls. The topic is Christians love Jesus more than God. Think about that. Christians love Jesus more than they love God. That's the claim. I'm going to demonstrate that, and I'm hoping that by the time we're done, it'll cause some folks to realize that your affections are out of order. But before we go any further, let me make sure I'm live on all the platforms. Yep, just went live on Instagram. And I think it's going live on Facebook now. Let me make sure we're in there. But in the meantime, come on into the chat. Greet somebody in Reason's name as we get ready to get into it. I'm just checking on the platforms. Let me see. Why don't I hear it on Instagram? Let me check. Okay, I see them on Instagram. Okay, cool. And Facebook, let me put the link in the chat. One second. Yo, what's good? Shy Goodwin, good to see you. Let me pin this real quick. All right, should be pinned on Facebook. Gia, what's happening? Says, let's go. We're good on YouTube. Okay. Shy said, I got the alert today. Oh, that's what's up. My Unique Monique, what's happening? Says, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. In Reason's name. And Truth Bullet, great topic. Yeah, somebody on Facebook said, when I posted this, they said, man, I never thought about that. But it's true. Christians love Jesus more than they love God. And I'm going to demonstrate that today. I've got some things that I can't wait to share and say. And I would love to have a Christian interlocutor, somebody who's a believer, Bible-believing Christian. If you think that my claim is out of pocket, please call in, set me straight. Let's talk about it. And if you're wondering, what is that swaying up above your head? That is the talking cloud Yahweh, in Reason's name, who condescended like all great clouds do to be with us here today. So shout out, praise to Yahweh. And not Yahweh. No, we're saying no to Yahweh. We don't get down with myths, cleverly devised myths. But Yahweh is not a cleverly devised myth. Yahweh is the embodiment of our reason, our logic. It is a reflection of us, much in the same way the God of the Bible is a reflection of the men who invented it. There's no Bible God. The Bible God is just the concoction of a million men's minds. When I was growing up, it was Freddy Krueger. Remember Freddy Krueger? They said he was the son of 1,000 maniacs because his mother was working in a psych ward, and all of these patients in the psych ward had their way with his mother, and she ended up being pregnant. I guess they didn't think about the science of it all, but they said Freddy Krueger was the son of 1,000 maniacs. Well, Bible God is the God of 1,000. We don't know how many people put their hands to the biblical community to say, hey, make the God like this, or make our story as a people like this, or don't say we went to war with them, say we were in Egypt and say this happened. Even though there's no evidence that any of this ever occurred, you had a bunch of people, you had communities coming together to concoct the God of Israel. But they were not the only ones who did that. All ancient peoples did that. They concocted their gods. And here's the thing that's most interesting to me. These ancient peoples didn't just concoct their gods. They peeked over the fence at their neighbors' gods and said, ooh, what are y'all saying your God does? Let me get a little bit of that into my God. Or if they conquered them, they would just take those people's poems and take the conquered people's gods out and stick their own gods' names in. This is how all ancient peoples derived their ideas of who the deities were, right? And so when I say that the God of the Bible is he's not the son of a thousand maniacs, but he is the concoction of untold numbers of people who came together to make the God what it is. And so Yahweh's not very different, except for you can't hold the God of the Bible to any standard, no matter what he says. If he says something that you think is ratchet, you have to now call that ratchetness righteousness. God said that they can go into the land and do what to people? Well, if God said it, it must be good. No, you can't hold the God of the Bible to any standard, but we can hold Yahweh to a standard. Why? Because it's in reason's name. Now, all Yahweh is the symbolic representation of what we can find to be reasonable. All right. So I'm saying all that just to stall a little bit because I want to give people time to get in. I'm about to start taking calls. If you want to call in, the link is in the chat. Look for the name of this channel is Ichabod. If I post it, or somebody with a wrench like My Unique Monique, she may post the link for you so that you can call in. If you don't feel like looking for My Unique Monique or myself, just scroll all the way up on Facebook or on YouTube, and you'll see the link. It's the first comment. Or if you're on Instagram, the link is in my bio. So you can call in. All right. Before I go too much further, I will say just by way of housekeeping. So last Thursday, I did not do exit strategy because when I was about to go on, there still was a bunch of noise outside my window from my neighbors getting work done. And even though you all said the mic couldn't pick it up, it was enough that it was distracting to me. And so I just decided not to go live. I try to keep with the Thursday nights as often as I can, but it wouldn't have been fruitful for me to try to do it last week. So that's what happened there. My Unique Monique says, you got to call that ratchetness righteousness. Wow, that's crazy. That's what it is. You read ratchet stuff in the Bible, but if God's doing it, you got to say, well, I guess he's good. So it must be good for that to happen. It's crazy. But yes, I'm waiting for theists to call in before I dive too much further. Normally what happens is I get on and I talk for a half hour to an hour before somebody actually calls in. And I end up shooting my wad and, giving out all of the ideas I wanted to talk to a theist with. And then I have to like regurgitate or repeat myself when they get on. So I'm trying to not do that, but I also know, it's rush hour. People are on their way home. Probably shouldn't be talking while you're driving anyway. So let's say that now. If you're driving, don't call. Don't want you distracted driving while you're calling in. But if you're in a place where you can talk, would love to have a conversation with you. I think it's demonstrable. It's clear that Christians love Jesus more than they love God. And if you would have asked me that when I was a Christian, I wouldn't have said yes to that. I would have said something to the effect of, well, Jesus is God. And I'll dive more into my responses and all that in a minute. But think about this as we get ready to dive in. When's the last time you threatened somebody, not just somebody, when's the last time you threatened one of your loved ones to love you? I'm not talking about parents threatening their kids to behave. Don't make me have to come back there. Do I got to come upstairs? I'm not talking about, I mean to love you. Threatened a loved one to love you. Think, maybe you have. And if you have, but I don't think many of us can think of too many times. Maybe you had some moments where you were in a love affair and you felt like you had to say some out-of-pocket stuff to get the person. I don't know how you get down. If someone threatened you to love them, would you comply? Would you acquiesce? Would you dig deep and say, oh, you're going to do what if I don't love you? You're going to hurt me? Okay, then I better love you and go inside and do what you got to do to make yourself love. Have you ever been threatened to love someone and thought to yourself, they got a good point. I better love them. Not I better do it so I don't get hurt. Or I better make them think I love them so they don't hurt me. No. When's the last time you really took it to heart? They're going to do what if I don't love them? They're going to hurt. They're going to injure me. They're going to terrorize me. They're going to make me suffer. Gee, I don't want that. I better love them. I don't think you would readily do that, and I don't think you would put anybody in that position. Tell me if I'm wrong in the chat. Just come on. Just tell me if I'm wrong. If there's a time you can think of that you're proud of, because maybe you've done it and you're not proud. So tell me the last time you've done it and you were proud that you threatened someone to love you. And you were like, yeah, got my love from that person. They knew what was up. They knew what was in their best interest. They know what I'm capable of. They know what I was going to do if they didn't love me. You probably have never and been proud of it. Why am I saying that? This is what the God of the Bible resorts to. Have you ever asked yourself, and if you're familiar with this channel, you know how we do. I'm building somewhere. So we're not at the climax yet, but we're this is foreplay. I'm sorry to use sexual imagery. I'm sorry. But we're just on the on-ramp. We're not on the highway yet. This is the on-ramp. Have you ever asked yourself why in the New Testament, why from the lips of Jesus, there are so many warnings to not doubt, to not fall away, to not turn away, why are there all these warnings of what God's going to do to you or what Jesus is going to do to you before the Father if you ever have the guts to not believe, to turn away? If you ever have the audacity to doubt and give in to your doubt, all the terrible things he's going to do to you. Why? Why does he have to threaten you? Well, think about it. Think about it, y'all. There's a reason why there are all these threats of what will happen if you don't believe. You know why? Because somebody's, I don't think it was just one person. You got a Matthew or Mark or Luke or John or Paul, a writer of Acts. You got all these different people in the New Testament trying to tell you what Jesus is going to do if you don't shape up and fly right, whatever the saying is. But you know why you have to do that? Why they had to do that, I should say? They only had to do that because they knew, they understood there's something wrong with this whole picture. There's something wrong with what the Jesus that they all, I should say. Because let's give them the benefit of the doubt that the Jesus that they write about was a real person. Let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. Matter of fact, it all makes a lot more sense if the Jesus was a real person. But here's where it really starts making sense. If the Jesus was a real person, but then he doesn't do what they were expecting the promised Messiah to do. If he fails to do what they were expecting the Messiah to do, and then he dies, and people want to keep the legend alive. Matter of fact, they want the legend to grow after his death because they're tired of being wrong. You've got a community of people who every couple years there's a new person claiming to be the Messiah. And then Rome kills him or somebody else takes him. It never pans out. And let's say you're one of Jesus's disciples and they're like, and somebody says to you, hey, why are you following Jesus? Don't you remember bar so-and-so and bar so-and-so? All these other people who claimed they were the Messiahs and Rome killed them. And you're like, let's say you're Matthew or you're, Peter or you're whoever you are. And you're like, trust me. I know. I know that all these other would-be Messiahs were killed and they failed. But I'm trying to tell you, this Jesus, the way he's teaching and all this is God. And they're like, I'm trying to tell you, he's going to be another false Messiah. No, he's the real. And then your Jesus gets killed just like all the other ones. And you got one or two choices. You can either eat some humble pie and go back to the squad and say, yeah, all right, go ahead, clown me. Go ahead. I know what y'all gonna say. Y'all was right. Go ahead, tell me. I know you told me so. You can either do that, or you can keep the party going. Nah, I know all the other ones was killed by Rome, but and I know even ours was killed by Rome. But guess what? He didn't stay dead. He didn't. And all of your Jewish brethren and sister might say to you, okay, even if I wanted to believe you that this Messiah claim, this was the real one or the right one, and even if I wanted to believe you that what he was crucified and he's alive again, even if I wanted to believe you, what about all the things the scriptures say the Messiah was going to do? And there's really not a lot of things the Messiah had to do. There's a few key things he had to do. You know what one of them was? Restore the nation of Israel. Put them back in their land with no one ruling over them, but with them ruling over all the nations. That's the main thing the Messiah had to do. So even if I was Peter's friend, cousin, whoever, his ex, whatever, and I tried to tell him, Peter, you're Jesus. He's not going to pan out. He's going to fall by the wayside like all the other would-be messiahs. And even if Peter came back and said, guess what? You was right that Rome was going to kill him, but he rose from the dead. Even if I was tempted to believe Peter, I would still say, okay, so then when is he going to do all the Messiah stuff? All this rising from the dead business, I don't care about that. When's he going to do all the Messiah stuff? And this is how you know these kinds of conversations must have been going on, because even in the book of Acts, first chapter, they asked Jesus, in the literature, they asked Jesus, okay, now that you're risen, are you now going to restore the kingdom? Because you rising from the dead ain't really shit for us. The real thing is the Messiah is supposed to bring in the kingdom, not some spiritual, ethereal kingdom, a real, tangible kingdom. And then the writer of Acts has Jesus say, it's not for you to know the time when that's going to happen. All you need to know is from right now, you just need to be telling people about me. And then they put all these warnings on Jesus's lips. But why do you need the warnings? Why do you need to threaten people to not turn away, not look away, not doubt, not fall away? You only have to do that if you've got a bunch of people saying, okay, I'm willing to accept your Messiah claims. Just do the Messiah stuff. Just do it. Restore the kingdom. And that never happens. It never happens. And so you need these little like warnings, because understandably people are looking away. They're looking for another Messiah. They're looking for somebody who is going to fulfill what the prophecy said, because this dude didn't do it. So now you got to start warning them. Don't fall away. Don't turn away. Don't doubt. Don't this, don't that. Because he's never doing the stuff you wanted the Messiah to do. Now, I said all that to get to this point. This is the key point. Here's what every one of us should go ask our Christian friends, because I don't even know how I would respond to this question back when I was a Christian. Matter of fact, I think I do know how I would respond, and it's a scary response. So you ready for the question? Here goes the question. If you could ever demonstrate to a Christian, or Christian, let me just ask you directly, if it could ever be demonstrated that Jesus was not the long-awaited Messiah, he was not. If it could ever be demonstrated that he was not, convincingly, like from the scriptures, you look and you realize, oh, damn, you're right. The Messiah was supposed to this, da, 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 and Jesus didn't. And you realize, so that means he can't be the Messiah. If you could ever demonstrate that Jesus was not the long-awaited Messiah, Christian, would you then say, oh, well, then I'm off Jesus. Let me just go back to waiting for the true Jewish Messiah? Or would you give up on it altogether? If Jesus is not the Messiah, if that could ever be demonstrated, would you say, oh, thanks for letting me know. Let me go back. Let me go to the synagogues. Let me just join. Let me proselyte. Let me become a Jew, or maybe I'll become messianic. But most times when people say they're a messianic Jew, what they mean is because they think Jesus was the Messiah. Very rarely do you find somebody in the Christian camp who's willing to say, okay, if Jesus wasn't that Messiah, I'm still going to wait for the long-awaited Jewish Messiah. You know why they don't do that? Because at that point they realize, wait. The Christian story, the way the Christian message came, was it made this exclusively Jewish thing look like it was for Gentiles too. So much so that the Jews got eclipsed by the Gentiles, right? God weeded them out to graft us in, but God can still graft them back in, but at least we're in now. We got our seat already. We're at the table. And so most Christians will flock to the Christian faith and take the Jewish Messiah only because they think the Jewish Messiah is a universal Messiah. But that's the spin that the Christians put on the Jewish scriptures. If you ever got it into your head that Jesus was not the long-awaited Jewish Messiah, would you scrap it and go back to the drawing board and then spend the rest of your days looking for the long-awaited Jewish Messiah because Jesus wasn't it? Or would you come to your senses and say, damn, if Jesus isn't the long-awaited Messiah and there's not this hidden switch that wasn't really there, but now in the New Testament you realize, oh, it wasn't just for the Jews, it's for the Gentiles too. And you realize all the stuff you see in Romans, right? If you realize, damn, I can't count on that stuff anymore, that was a Christian twist on the Jewish faith, do you still love the God of the Bible? And I'm wagering that the answer to this long question, sorry for asking it in such a elongated way, but I'm wagering that the answer to this question is no. If you realize that Jesus cannot be the promised long-awaited Jewish Messiah, and therefore there is no universal Messiah, all the stuff you read in the New Testament about how God's grafting in the Gentiles, and you realize, oh, that's not really what's happening. All the scriptures that Paul talks about in Romans 8 and 9, where he talks about those who were not a people, I've called a people. Like that was never meant to apply to the Gentiles. That was specifically talking about Israel. God said of Israel in the book of Isaiah, you are not my people. Then he says in the same chapters of the same book, but those who I've called not my people, I'm going to call them my people. I'm going to restore them and make them my people. All of that is about Israel. If you realize that, oh, shit, we've been wrong, Jesus is not it. If there is a Jewish Messiah, he hasn't come already. And if he hasn't come already, I can't put stock in any other stuff that Paul's been saying about this Jew and Gentile, the wall between the two in Ephesians, right? The wall of enmity between the two is broken down. And now there's one people. I can't count on any of that now. Do you still look for the long-awaited Jewish Messiah, or do you give up? And I'm venturing to say that for many Christians, no. If you realize that Jesus is not it, you're not still looking for the Jewish Messiah. You're not still looking for the God of the Hebrew Bible to come and do anything. You're abandoning that idea of God, which is why I'm saying that if you're a Christian, you love Jesus more than you love the God of the Bible. Even if you think Jesus is that God, because if you could ever get to the point where you realize that Jesus can't be that Messiah, you will ditch that God altogether. And tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that if you're a Christian and you realize Jesus is not the Messiah, you will stick around waiting for whoever the Messiah actually is. Tell me I'm wrong. That you would stick around and wait for the true Messiah, because it could be another 2,000 years before that one comes. You love the idea of Jesus more than you love the idea of God. And here's the I want to say sad part. I don't know if it's sad. Well, here's where the rubber meets the road for us. If you call in today, I will show you in the Bible how Jesus cannot be the long-awaited Jewish Messiah. And you will have some choices to make about what you do with that information. Or maybe you want to call and show me how he is the long-awaited Jewish Messiah. And we can have that conversation. But I think that's about as much as I want to say before I get a call. So if you're a Christian, a theist, a Bible believer, and you want to call in and set me straight, or at least hear where I'm coming from, the link is in the chat. Let's chop it up. I will post it again just in case. Wait, that's not it. Hold on. Okay, here it is. Should have seen it just pop up in the chat just now. And in the meantime, I will check the chat to see what y'all are saying. What's up, Wade? Good to see you. This is one of the biggest ones, Wade. Jesus was supposed to come back when his disciples were alive. Then Paul said he'd come back soon. Then Revelation says he's coming back soon, but didn't. This is why you need all the threats. You need to threaten people not to turn away, not to fall away, not to give into doubt, because they knew Jesus did not fulfill messianic prophecies. And if he was going to do it, that they knew the time was short. He's got to come back soon. We got to put he's got to come back in our lifetime. And if he doesn't, then we've just made him a liar because we put these words in his mouth. Yeah. Let me see what else is going in the chat. David DeBow was good. Says, hey. Shot Goodwin talking about this God says, sounds toxic AF. Hey, Eddie, what's happening? Ambassador LPW, good to see you. Talk to me, those who are in the chat, if you are a deconverted Christian. If somebody had been able back when you were a Christian to demonstrate that Jesus did not fulfill the prophecies about a Messiah, if they could convincingly demonstrate that to you, would you have said, so okay, not him, somebody else? Then would you have stayed on board? Maybe not the Christian board, but would you have stayed on the Messiah train? Like, okay, then we're still looking for this Messiah, this Jewish Messiah, the God who parted the Red Sea to get Israel out of Egypt, the God who sent the prophets, and the God who was with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fire. That God, we're still waiting for that God to come through, but it just wasn't Jesus. Would you have stuck around? Or would you have said, okay, well then, damn, if it's not him, I don't know why I'm sticking around. What would you have done if you were a Christian and somebody showed you demonstrably from the Bible Jesus can't be it? I'm curious to see what y'all say. Amaya says, probably not. Maybe that's because my faith was all or nothing, banking on Jesus and Christianity. Gotcha. Ambassador LBW says, hell no, I would not have, because Jesus is what made God palatable. That's a good point. I was waiting to talk about that, but you're going to make me dive into it. I'm trying to save some of this conversation for my callers, but that's a good point. Jesus is what made God palatable. No, I would not want to worship Bible God. He's a monster, and Jesus made him look palatable. Think about that. Now, imagine being Jewish and not having Jesus And all you've got is that God. All you've got is a bunch of promises and the notion that the reason why you're not where you want to be geopolitically is because your forefathers have been upsetting God and worshiping other gods and this, that, and the third. But you don't have the palatable version of a Jesus to look forward to. Like the Christian going back to that kind of a God. I don't see it either. Jesus made God palatable. Now, I'm curious. There's probably people who would say, because now I'm even trying to put the screws to that statement. Does Jesus actually, I mean, he makes God more palatable because now you got the idea of grace, forgiveness, God becoming a man, becoming a lamb, taking on the sacrifices, the sins of the world and willingly dying for it. You've got the use of the term love, for God so loved the world. So yeah, I think we could say Jesus makes God more palatable. I don't know if we could really argue with that. I'm just trying to see if we can look at the other side of that coin. Nobody knows says, I second that. Bible God is a monster. Jesus makes the journey to being Christian meaningful and durable. Wow, durable. That's interesting. Durable. He makes it durable. I can put up with this God's shenanigans because Jesus put up with my sin on the cross or whatever. Maybe is that what you mean? That's a good point. Paper Chariot says they also, some Christians also love Paul more than Jesus. I don't think Christians are ready for that conversation. I don't think Christians are ready for that conversation. None of the early gospels say anything close to justification by faith. John gets closer to it, but what Paul is talking about, you don't get any of that from Jesus's in the Gospels. Amani, what's good? Amani says, I read the title so incorrectly. I thought it said Christians love God more than God loves. Wow. Yeah. No, Christians love Jesus more than God. Let me see. Yeah, good stuff in the chat. If you're on Facebook or Instagram, you want to come join the chat, the link to my YouTube is in my bio as well. So you can come to join us on YouTube at Ichapod, ICHAPOD. If you want to come join us in the chat over here. Because I always forget, let me just pull it up real quick. I always forget to check the chat on Facebook. Yeah, a few watching, not a lot in the chat. So y'all can come join us on YouTube if you want. Mythos Boy, what's good? Better late than never. Already gave my spill at the beginning. So if you want to go back and check some of the spill, you can hear. But right now, now we're waiting for callers before I say too much more. I don't want to say too much more lest I end up repeating myself in the presence of my interlocutors. But the question for the Christian was, if you found out that Jesus was not the long-awaited Jewish Messiah, would you stay on board waiting for whoever the Messiah is, or would you give up at that point? And I really would love to hear from some Christians on this point. But I'm also asking former Christians, back when you were a Christian, if you had found out that Jesus couldn't have been the Messiah, would you have stayed on board or would you have given up? So that's the question. The link to call in is in the chat, pinned, top comment on Facebook, top comment on YouTube, and in my bio on Instagram. Shah Goodwin says, I always thought it was crazy that the Hebrew people got to experience all the miraculous stuff from the Bible and still started making idols and shit. I feel I feel like they should have been scared straight. Yes. I mean, I don't think there's a person who, especially if you were younger, maybe when you were older, you were like, maybe you did all the reasoning in your mind and make it make sense. But if you were a Christian and younger, like it doesn't make sense that God would have been doing all of those things in the presence of people, and they still like, so I don't believe you. Like what? You split the Red Sea, you let us walk through on dry land, you guided us through a pillar of smoke and a cloud of smoke and a pillar of fire, and they still was on some. Who's the Lord? Like, why should I listen to the Lord? Like, really? Like, think about Nahweh. Nahweh, the talking cloud up above my head. If Nahweh were to come alive right now and start speaking, I don't know, you might think it's AI, but I mean, I'm live. I'm live on YouTube. If Nahweh were to come alive and start speaking and tell you things about yourself that no one else could know, do you really think the chances of you disregarding Nahweh are that high? Like, think about it. Like, imagine if Nahweh were to come alive right now and tell you the dream you had last night that you didn't tell anyone about. Now, you might think you were hallucinating, but outside of that, you wouldn't, like, there's no way AI or there's no way any of that. You mean to tell me you would, and then Nahweh were to give you a command? And Nahweh, and imagine Nahweh goes further and Nahweh says, ask for a sign and I'll give you a sign. And you say to Nahweh, okay, make all the windows in my house just shatter right now, and all the doors just slam shut. And then Nahweh says, so let it be written, so let it be done. and it happens. And then Nahweh gives you a command. You really telling me you're going to look at Nahweh's command and say, nice trick, but you're not going to get me? Like, all the stuff you read about, and this is us with technology, all the things that we could think of today, like, man, how might Brady have done that? How might he have had Nahweh? Like, you got things that you could probably think about of how I did it today. Go back 4,000 years, 3,000 years when this stuff is supposedly happened. They don't have cell phones. They don't have the internet. They don't have special effects. They got God guiding them through the wilderness, drowning armies behind them, sending plagues, and they still was on some. So, yeah, right. Like, this is how you know, okay, some literary genius concocted these stories for this generation to be scared straight by. But to do that, you can't tell them about your generation. Why? Because your generation is going to say, well, then show us the miracles. No, you have to tell it about a generation long, long time ago. All the miracles happen off camera, way back here. You can't see them. But just know, when it gets up to our day, the same God who did all that stuff back there, he'll do it to you now. Which is why the New Testament authors take such liberty to threaten people to believe, because that's what the authors were doing in the Hebrew Bible. They were telling fantastic stories and then threatening people. Look, the reason why we were in exile is because our forefathers disobeyed God. Now we're going back to our land. You don't want to end up in exile again, do you? No, I don't. Okay, well then obey God's commandments, because if you don't, he's going to get us in exile again. Okay. What are the commandments? Let me make some real quick. You make 10 commandments. You make the Deuteronomistic, such a hard word to conjugate. Deuteristic? No, Deuteroistic. I don't know how you say it. The laws in Deuteronomy. You make up all these laws. You make up the Leviticus laws. You make up all these laws because now that you got people on the hook, you got them scared. They don't want to go back into bondage, back into exile. You could tell them anything. So you make up a bunch of laws and you just shove them in. It's sort of kind of like with Trump right now, right? When Trump came into office, you know how litigious he is, how he will sue any and everybody, right? So he's suing law firms, he's suing universities, he's suing networks. And nobody's like challenging him. They just get it in their mind, like do whatever he says. Fire Kimmel, take Colbert off the air, because we don't want to have to go through these. And so because he's threatening so much, people are just falling in line. He's like, oh, y'all not going to fight back? Well, I can tell y'all whatever then. And then you stick a bunch of laws in there. That's sort of what the Hebrew Bible is. I'm going to make this big, spooky, scary God. And then the people bite. And they're like, oh, wait, y'all, the fish are biting today. They're just stick all, whatever laws you want to stick in, stick all those in there. We got them on the hook. And then you got some threats. And then you get to the New Testament, and the God doesn't come through. He doesn't do what he promised to do. He doesn't send a savior. And so what do you do to keep people on the hook? You tweak the prophecies, you make them spiritual instead of physical, but then you give more threats, because that's how the formula works. It's the threats that got people on the hook in the first place. So you can't get into the New Testament and not give more threats. You've got to give more threats, and you've got to take Sheol and turn Sheol into hell now. Gehenna, Hades, to keep them on the hook. And then it comes down to you and me today. All of us, if you were a Christian, you were on the hook. You heard the threats, you heard the warnings, you saw the prophecies, you heard them say this was done to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet such and such. But you probably didn't go back to see what the prophet actually said. Even me, as a world traveling evangelist and apologist, when I saw a lot of the prophecies in the New Testament, I would be like, all right, you got one or two choices, Brady. You can take this New Testament author for granted and say he says this was done to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet Isaiah when he said such and such. You can just take him for granted, give him the benefit of the doubt. Or you can go back to the Old Testament and find every single one of those passages, find the context. Now keep in mind, when I became a Christian, we didn't have Bibles with all the annotations that we have now. I had a Schofield Study Bible, but even that one wasn't so quick to show you where this New Testament, quote unquote, prophecy in the Old Testament can be found. And so sometimes you can go back and read the prophecy. Sometimes you just had to read it and say, damn, where's that in the Old Testament? I guess I got to read the whole Old Testament to find where this prophecy was taken from. But then by the time I do that, I might forget the prophecy I was even looking for. Unless I'm going to be studious and write down every time it says it, this was done to fulfill a prophecy. I got to write all those down. And then I got to go back to the Old Testament looking for that. I wasn't going to do all that. And I didn't have the annotated Bible to show me where all the prophecies were. So I just gave the New Testament authors credit for, hey, he wouldn't say this was from the Old Testament if it wasn't. He wouldn't say this is a fulfillment of the prophecy if it wasn't. So he said it, so it must be. It wasn't until much later, y'all. I became a Christian in the early 90s. It wasn't until the mid-20 teens that I started going back through the Old Testament. And I only had to do it because I was in a class in seminary, and the entire class was on the New Testament use of the Old Testament. I got excited, like, damn, I'm finally going to get a chance to look at where these quote unquote prophecies come from and look at them in the original languages and look at them in context and see that the New Testament authors were making sense. Only I was in for a rude awakening because as I went back through the Old Testament, looking in the original languages and looking in the context, and I'm like, well, this passage is not what the New Testament author said it was. Maybe the next one will be. Well, this passage is not what the New Testament author claimed it was. Maybe the next one will be. this passage ain't what the New Testament claimed either. But the next one's got to be. And and none of them, well, no, let me not say none of them, because here's the tricky part. Here's the manipulative part. The word I was trying to find a minute ago, I think, was deuteroistic. That's the word I think I was looking for. Anyway, but here's the part that's interesting to me. You can find Jesus fulfilling partial prophecies, but here's how you know the fix is in. Because the part of the prophecies that Jesus fulfills, it's always the mundane part of the prophecy. It's always the pedestrian part of the prophecies. It's always the easy part of the prophecy that Jesus fulfills. I'll give you, for instance, Zechariah 9:9. Behold, your king comes riding on a donkey, on the colt of a donkey. And then you turn to the New Testament, you see Jesus riding on a colt of a donkey. Depending on which gospel you read, some passages had him riding on a donkey and a colt at the same time, like, because they didn't realize it was parallelism, Hebrew parallelism, when it said a donkey on the colt of no, it's saying he's going to be riding on a young donkey, not two different animals. I forget which gospel it was that put Jesus on two different animals. Like, what? How the hell does that happen? But either way, okay, so you have Jesus coming riding on a colt. Did he fulfill Zechariah 9:9? Maybe he fulfilled Zechariah 9:9, but keep reading Zechariah 9:10. Keep reading what he was supposed to do when he comes in riding on the donkey. Let's just read it. Let's just be Berean, shall we? And read it. I'm not going to put it on the screen, but you can turn with me in your copy of what they told you was God's word. Let's look at Zechariah 9. Yeah, just 9, 9, and 10. Let me check the chat, make sure I'm still good. Y'all let me know if anything goes off with the mic or anything like that. Otherwise, I'm going to keep on strolling here. Okay. Zechariah 9, 9, and 10. Rejoice greatly, daughter of Zion. Shout, daughter of Jerusalem. Look, your king is coming to you. He is legitimate and victorious. Now, let's stop right there. How would you know that Jesus was victorious and legitimate? And guess what? Him rising from the dead has nothing to do with his victory in this passage. So you can't say the fact that he was victorious over the grave. Nope. That's not what this passage says. 9:9. Rejoice greatly, daughter of Zion. Shout, daughter of Jerusalem. Look, your king is coming to you. He is legitimate. Is Jesus legitimate? Let's see. And victorious. Is he victorious? Let's see. Humble and riding on a donkey, on a young donkey, the foal of a female donkey. Verse 10, because Jesus fulfilled verse 9, right? He came in riding on a donkey, a young donkey, the foal of a female donkey. He fulfilled verse 9, at least that part of it. Verse 10, I will remove the chariot from Ephraim and the war horse from Jerusalem, and the battle bow will be removed. Then he will announce peace to the nations. His dominion will be from sea to sea and from the Euphrates River to the ends of the earth. When this king comes in riding on the donkey, he's going to be legitimate and victorious from sea to sea, from the Euphrates River to the ends of the earth, and he's going to speak peace to the nations. Did Jesus do this? What Christians are quick to say is Jesus fulfilled the partial prophecy. He's going to fulfill the rest his second time. When the first time he came, he fulfilled the donkey part. The next time he comes, he's going to fulfill the rest of it. I'm like, yeah, he did fulfill the donkey part, all right. Like, you've got to be a jackass to look at this and say he's legitimate and victorious for only doing the donkey part of this prophecy. Another one, you could look at Micah 5:2, right? Bethlehem. Bethlehem is going to see the Messiah come. Bethlehem is going to see, matter of fact, let me turn to it, just so you all don't look and say I'm doing anything illegitimate here. Go to Micah chapter 5. And I'm still saving what I really want to say because I'm waiting for a theist, a Christian, to call. But I'll just share this in the meantime while we're waiting. Micah 5:2 says, "As for you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, seemingly insignificant among the clans of Judah, from you a king will emerge who will rule over Israel on my behalf, one whose origins are in the distant past. So the Lord will hand the people of Israel over to their enemies until the time when the woman in labor gives birth. Then the rest of the king's countrymen will return and be reunited to the people of Israel. He will assume his post and shepherd the people." Did Jesus fulfill this? Well, maybe he got the Bethlehem part right. Like I said, the mundane part of the passage, the pedestrian part, the easy part. How many people were born in Bethlehem? Tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. How many of them fulfilled the Bethlehem part of this verse? All of them did, including Jesus, if he was born there. How many of them fulfilled the rest of the verse? Not even Jesus fulfilled the rest of the passage. So I just say all that to say, I'm not even scratching the surface of the things that Jesus supposedly would do as Messiah, but didn't do. But if it could be demonstrated to you that he didn't do what the Messiah was supposed to do, and you have to come up with some kind of second, when he comes back, this was a partial fulfillment, he's going to fulfill the rest later. If you've got to say those kind of things, that is the tell. That is the giveaway. If you ever watch like magicians, when they look at other magicians like Penn and Teller, when they try to tell how the magician did his trick, this is how you know the New Testament authors are doing a trick. Their giveaway is, I'm going to call it a prophecy, but I'm going to make it a partially fulfilled prophecy. And then you've got to wait for him to come back again for the rest of the prophecy to be fulfilled. Except when you go to the prophecy in the Hebrew Bible, there is no two-parter. There is no prophecy part A, prophecy part B. It's all or nothing. All right. I've been sitting here chopping it up for going on 50 minutes. Right about now, I need a theist to call. I need a Christian to call. If you think you can defend Jesus as the Jewish Messiah, and if you think you can defend the claim that Christians love Jesus more than God, if you say that's not true, I love Jesus because he's God, or I love God because he loved me first, and he loved me first through Jesus. He sent his son to die for me, so love the world. Whatever you want to say, if it could be demonstrated that no, that didn't happen, that Jesus is not the Messiah, but you're still stuck on Jesus, and you're not willing to follow the God of the Bible, the God of the Hebrew Bible without Jesus, then you love Jesus more than you love God. And you need to think about that. That is proof positive that you are in a cult. You are in a Jesus cult. Because even though Jesus is not doing the things the Hebrew Bible says that the Messiah is going to do, You're still stuck on him. And the God of the Hebrew Bible is like, yo, why you following him? I said the Messiah would do X, Y, and Z. Jesus didn't even do A, B, and C. He may have done A. You're in a cult. But if you've got questions about what I'm saying, you disagree, you want to set me straight, hey, the link is in the chat. The link is in my bio if you're on Instagram. If you're on Facebook, it's a pinned comment. If you're here on YouTube, top comment, or it's in the chat. Look for Ichabod or look for My Unique Monique. You'll see it posted. Somebody said Micah 5 verse 2. 5:2. The other passage we looked at was Zechariah 9, and we started at verse 9. All right. My guy is calling, a theist who we've talked to several times before. Let's get Kikala up on the chat. Welcome back to Ichabod. What's up, my friend? I can't hear you. Let's see. Is it my? Shouldn't be my end. Let me know in the chat if you guys can hear Kikala. I can't hear you. And I think this happens several times, right? Where you had to figure something out and then call back or something like that. But I'll be here if you want to just log out and log back in or work it out. I'll be here. Take your time. Paper Chariot says, Nahweh is a great co-host. Indeed. Yo, Mr. Biscuit, what's happening, my guy? Good to see you. Wait, where did he go? Oh, there he is. Hope all is well with you, man. All right, so yeah, we are waiting for Kikala to call back or another theist if you want to call in and set me straight, set us straight. This is the chance to do it. Let me check the YouTube real quick. I'm not YouTube, the Facebook. All right. Mr. Biscuit said, I'm blessed, fam. That's what's up. Somebody asked me the topic that I was going to do last Thursday. I teased it out last week. I said I was going to do an episode talking about all of the Christians, the bigot and racist Christians I had done ministry with. And then last Thursday, preparing for that, I posted about one in particular. So you can go to my Facebook page and scroll down and you'll see I posted our private DM conversation because it got sort of out of pocket in the DMs. And so I posted about it. And then Thursday night, I was going to do a show about that and other bigoted and racist Christians that I did ministry with. I didn't know they were bigots and racist at the time. It's not until MAGA popped off that I realized, oh, that's where you stand? Wow. Okay, Kikala is back. Let's get him in the chat. Let's see what's happening. Mic check 1, 2. Talk to us. Still can't hear you, bro. Still cannot. I should have wrote down, I don't know if it was you or somebody else who told us last time what you had to do to become audible, but I don't remember what it was. In the chat, they're clowning Yahweh. Ambassador LPW says he's more visible than Yahweh. Talking about Yahweh. And peace and blessings, Free Soul the Movement. I think that's my nephew coming in. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know too many other people rocking the Free Soul tag. but I'm pretty sure that's my nephew. Let me know if Free Soul, if you're not who I think you are. That's got to be my nephew because I just got a missed call. At least I think that makes sense. Good question. Mr. Biscuit said, can Nawe help or is he helpless with the audio? Nawe is a reflection of us. He can't do anything more than we can do. Sort of like Bible God. All right, let's try it again. Kika, please talk to us.
All right, can you hear me now?
I definitely can hear you. What's good? Is that a screenshot or should we be seeing video too? Because I only see a still image. Oh man, and I can't hear you anymore either. I heard you that one time. Damn. Technical difficulties is real. Okay, that is my nephew. That's what's up. All right. I'm gonna throw the link in the chat one more again. If anybody else is like, man, he's struggling, let me get somebody else in the chat. The link is in the chat if you want to call in, chop it up. Preferably a Bible believer. If you're just a theist, we typically take calls from theists, but we need Bible believers for today. We need people who are unashamedly Jesus lovers, Jesus worshipers, to answer the questions that we're throwing today. I'm so scared. Kikala's back. I'm so scared, bro. Hopefully
it's the last time.
Now we hear you.
I hear an echo though. I think I closed out the YouTube last time.
Yeah, you got to close out the YouTube to get the echo away. But you're not echoing to us. You sound fine to us.
So okay, I'll just talk through it then.
I sound fine to you. Okay.
I think you're being.
Is it bad?
Yeah, but I can figure it out.
Okay.
The voice in my head is talking to me all the time anyway, so it's just like that.
Is it Nawe or Yahweh? Who's talking to you? Is it reason or is it?
If I'm doing right, then it's that one.
Okay. What's good though? You see the prompt, yo. Oh, for those who don't know, we always got to do it real quick. Atheist, theist, agnostic, where you at with the God question? Just let people know where you at currently.
So first of all, your book is really good. I'm halfway through the morality chapter, and we'll have that conversation when I'm done. But I love the fact that you did the audio book yourself, and you should be writing more books, 100%.
Wow.
And I think your audience should check it out too, because
appreciate that.
The ideas are really distilled well.
Appreciate that. Thank you, man.
I think you're being too hard on Bible God though. And all
right, break it down. This is your chance to defend Bible God. You got the floor.
Well, so, I don't take everything literally, but it's like they're doing the best they can hearing God at the time, Just like preachers today, they speak like, yeah, he told me this, he told me that, but it's not so precise. So we have to give them grace. Just like we evolve.
Wait, because you've done two different things now. First, you said I was being too hard on Bible God, and now you're saying I have to give them grace. Who needs grace, God or the authors?
Well, their perspective on God. Their perspective on God.
Okay, so am I being hard on Bible God or am I being hard on the authors and their perspective? As far as you can hear from what I'm saying.
Bible God is a real entity that's portrayed as a character in this story.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So he's going to be given traits that aren't necessarily him, but it's their best ability to tell that story.
So the Bible, as far as you're concerned, now you got to let people know, because you got people who are going to say, oh, this dude's not a Christian. You're a Christian.
Since I was 6 years old. So that's like 40, almost 40 years.
This is a Christian talking. Now, here's the thing, though. Are you trying to tell me that the Bible is a biography and not an autobiography? Because as a Christian, I would think that the Bible is an autobiography, even if God is using humans as his stenographers or his ink pen. Is it biography or autobiography?
He's using really bad stenographers on purpose, I'm assuming.
Interesting. But once again, is it autobiographical or is it biographical?
I'll say it's biographical. Yeah, biographical. But with people that have really tried to interact with him.
You can't have both.
I'm going to go biographical. It's a biography.
Okay, because if he's using the stenographers, he's writing the story. So it's got to be autobiographical if he's using them.
It's like if I let my friends write a biography about me, they're going to hit 70, 80% maybe. If I was the invisible divine being that works in eons and is very patient and let people evolve from frogs or whatever, they're going to get it like, let's hope 50%. But it has the ability to evolve. And even in the Bible, it evolves. So I think you should be a little bit nicer. You know what I mean? Just a little bit.
I'm going to push you.
I get it.
I hear you. I'm going to push you on that, though, because remember on my channel, I don't like the blame the victim game. Because if we're recipients of this biographical material, and we're supposed to trust and believe and obey, and our eternal destiny is on the line, and if I can't trust it because of how shabby it is, and then I end up in hell, and then I get the blame for not being able to trust it, that's blaming the victim. I end up being a victim of this whole process. So why blame the victim and not blame the God the perfect, all-powerful God who had the ability to write a trustworthy message, right?
Just like he lets us evolve from whatever we evolve from, right? That process. Or just like our parents, may have been drunk and made us, you know what I mean? He allows a sloppy process. It's just part of it. I don't know.
Okay.
But we can.
So then, no, go ahead.
No, we can feel his presence. We can sense, I don't want to get into morality because we're going to talk about that late on another date. But that intuition that leads us to do better, is probably the same force that makes a squirrel or whatever crawl up a tree and start walking on its hind legs and then whatever. That's a horrible. That's a horrible evolutionary example.
I hear you.
But you know what I mean? Like that thing is there, So the ancient Jews were trying to tap into it.
Okay. So then I'm sorry if I'm a broken record, but I got a couple of go-to responses to these kinds of things. Should we also be not so harsh on the Quran either? Like, should we let it get things wrong and still call it truth as well? And should we do the same thing with the Bhagavad Gita? Should we do with all the holy books? Should we be as kind and gracious with them as you would like me to be with the Bible?
I would say that in their non-fundamental versions, that they would be a little bit closer to what I would consider the truth. Not to me personally, not as much as Jesus, but of course I have that bias. But you could pull a lot of good stuff from them. I do have a Muslim friend that had a lot of supernatural experiences, and it changed his life. I still believe in Jesus is will still pull up though on a Muslim, He just will. I don't know what it is. I told you about my college experience with the Pakistani woman. He kept appearing to her, and eventually she became a Christian. I'm not saying everybody has to be a Christian or anything like that. I don't even really think that the Bible, that's not really the message, right? We look at the Bible through everybody that wrote it, early church, Paul, early fathers, and then the Catholic Church. And that's the journey of it to getting to us, Protestants. But we can continue to reinterpret it. Jesus was interpreting it as he lived it. Life is quantum. I think that's maybe the biggest takeaway. Truth is quantum. Quantum is a bad word to use, but I know scientists are cringing.
I get you.
The quantum cloud is possibly multiple possibilities. Possibly.
Are you talking about the superposition?
Superposition. The cat is dead and alive.
Schrodinger. Yeah. So here's the question, Kiko. I'm just curious. I asked this question earlier. I don't know if you were watching when I asked it. Um, because you said, Jesus, you give Jesus a lot more credence than a lot of other worldviews. But I'm just curious
Mhm.
if it could be demonstrated that Jesus cannot have been the Jewish Messiah. The question is, would you then be off Jesus and still looking for whoever that Jewish Messiah is going to be? Or how would you respond? What would you do if you found out that Jesus, Dad, you know what? In light of what he can't be that. What would you do?
I believe Jesus' story. I accept it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I accept that superposition. So that's the lane that I'm in. You ever heard of the morphogenic field? I don't mean to get too.
I don't know by that name, but talk about it. Maybe it'll come familiar, maybe not.
So it's like the idea that like when the monkeys are washing off melons or something like that, then the 100th monkey hits, and then all of them can do it. Whether that's I don't know if you ever heard that story.
I'm lost now.
The the guy that first they thought nobody could run a mile in like a minute, right? And then one guy did it, and all of a sudden a bunch of people can do it.
Okay.
Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Got you.
So it's like
Yes.
when enough humans do something, it creates a field where other people can do things. And I
Now
think
that you
all of
know
us
it's
live in
possible,
stories.
it
Yes,
changes your whole outlook and your vista in terms of what you can do now.
exactly. So the prophet that first talked about the Messiah, or the lineage of prophets talking about the Messiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, whoever, they're seeing something, but it's blurry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're making up some of the details of it. Jesus sees that same story and realizes, I'm him. And then he latches on to that. You know what I
I
mean?
love that. I'm
It's a
him.
story that we live in.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then he was him, you know?
Was he him because God sent him, or was he him because he just attached that title to himself? Like if somebody else attaches that title to themselves, do they become him, or was Jesus uniquely him?
Um, like to me, they're not like I'd run afraid if anybody says it, or I think they're crazy. But of course, the Jews are still looking for somebody that's a military leader, right? Um,
Mhm.
and I think that what story you believe, what's the best version of Star Wars is on you. You know what I mean? I
But
think if
there
you
is
take,
no other version of a Messiah that's not going to come and be a military leader. So for Jesus to not come and do that, doesn't that disqualify him as the Messiah?
I think, I think what they were seeing was a pattern, just like
Mhm.
the Book of Revelations is a pattern. So picture this: when you're getting sick, right? You might have a thing in your throat, or you might have a thing in your nose, and you know what's coming next. You know what's coming next, right? Other people
Mhm.
will have that same reaction to them getting a virus or bacterial infection. I believe history has these patterns. So the Jewish prophets had the pattern of a Messiah that's coming,
Mhm.
you know, and
Did Jesus fit the pattern? Is the question.
he fit the pattern.
How
Not
so?
maybe not precisely to their particular perspective, though.
At all? How did he fit the pattern?
Well, he changed the world. He came, he started the early church.
Well, no, he didn't do it. The stories about him did it. How did he fit the pattern?
The stories wouldn't have existed without him and his death, burial, and resurrection. You know,
Oh, there's all kinds of stories that they're not true. Did Donald Trump win the 2020 election?
no,
But the
absolutely not.
stories, but the stories
Delete
about
that,
him
please.
winning it, but the stories about him winning it are still being talked about today. There's still a movement behind it. So we don't need him to have really won that election and have been robbed for the story to proliferate and change the world. MAGA
But
changed the world.
but he did do stuff. If he wasn't here, if he wasn't charismatic, if he wasn't
I'm
able to
not
paint a story,
I'm not arguing any of that. What I'm arguing is, did he fit the messianic pattern that you just talked? Like, what is the messianic pattern? What's the Messiah going to do?
this
And did
person
Jesus
will
do any of
come
those
and he
things?
will change
Mhm.
everything, and he's going to lead us to a better place. And I think,
Wait, how will he change everything? And what
well,
exactly is he going? Because actually, not everything. Like he's going to change some specific things, right?
well, I think that's the question. I don't think those things need to be so specific per se.
Okay.
I think it needs to be in the general realm. That's what I'm saying. It's a pattern that we all, like Paul says, we see through like a mist, right? We see, how did he say it? Paul says
see
we don't
through a veil.
Veil.
Dimly.
Yes. That's how I look at the whole thing. So there's the map of truth. There'd be the quantum map of truth, right? That's precise. None of us can see that. We just see it through a veil. All of us, you know, and Jesus walks on top of that map.
Even the people who are the biographers, who God is saying, y'all get to tell my story, even they're seeing through a veil and incorrectly seeing that the Messiah was going to be a military leader and a king and establish on David's throne and bring peace to the world. And like all the things that they said the Messiah was going to do, Jesus did none of them. None of them.
It's like if you heard there's a new Andre 3000 album, and you're going to be like, it's going to be awesome. You know, Big Boy's going to be on there. The beats are going to be crazy. And then it's a flute album, you know? And
no, but see, but Andre told us up front, hey, y'all, don't expect me to be rapping on this. It's all flute, right? Jesus is all flute after saying Big Boy's going to be on it and it's going to be banging beats and I'm going to be rapping. Jesus has been all flute.
But his flute changed the world in a way that's incredible and elevated morality, love, compassion, the things that will actually change our world. And also there's many healings and miraculous events, you know? I'm not saying that every Christian has to believe in the resurrection. I believe in the resurrection. I think there's power in that. You know what I mean? And like, you know, many people are healed. I know I was at church. You were talking about healings earlier. And I was at a church in Baton Rouge 20 years ago. And a guy had wrecked his neck in an 18-wheeler accident, you know? He got the thing on his neck. And then he's worshiping and somebody says something and you're healed and he takes it off, you know? I wasn't in there when that part happened. I heard it on the radio, but I saw him right when he walked out. And I'm like, that's crazy, you know? Stuff like that happens.
Does it?
Yeah, I told you. I just told you. I talked to the dude.
Did you
like
know this person? Did you know this person before this event?
Personally, but it was like a regular. If I was 20 something, he had to be late 40s, black dude in Baton Rouge, regular dude. You know what I mean? 18-wheeler
relationship to the ministry or anything like that?
I didn't know all that.
Did you check his bank statements to see if he recently got a influx of cash or anything? Like, there's a lot of things you don't know to accept this story just blindly because you heard it and met the guy.
But he was super regular, like, you know what I mean? Like, just super regular. In fact, his vibe is kind of similar to yours, where you just kind of like wear your authenticity on your sleeve, you know? And then I told you about the Pakistani woman that was seeing Jesus. She was a Muslim. She kept seeing Jesus. She felt that he healed her. He kept appearing to her. And then she eventually got baptized. Exorcists, you know, I've got friends that have done plenty of exorcisms. You know, I come from a charismatic Pentecostal-ish tradition.
Yeah. Somebody on my Facebook page yesterday, they started talking about these kinds of spiritual things. And I was just kind of letting them know, like, I think all that's BS and giving them alternatives. And then what they said to me was, if you don't think the supernatural is real, go hang out with some witches and people who do spells and hexes, and then come back and talk to me. And my response was simple. Like, why do I have to go hang out with witches to know that there's a spiritual realm? What's stopping the spiritual realm from coming to fuck with me right now where I'm at? Like, why do I have to go? Like, it's almost like the magic doesn't work unless I go to the place where the stage has already been set for it to happen.
Yeah,
that to me is one of the telltale signs that it's not real.
I mean, for some reason, just like the double slit experiment, if you look at it, the trick don't work. You know what I mean? And that's quantum physics for people that don't know that. Some people say that's a pseudoscience version of it, but for some reason, life works like that. Yeah. But for some reason, life works like that. But there's enough stories to know there's something to it, you know? And you can experience it.
You said you can experience it.
Yeah, it'll be harder, like, you know. But if you open yourself up.
So I'm not sure if you answered the question though. If you found out that Jesus did not fulfill any of the messianic prophecies to the point where then he's probably not the Messiah. I know you're saying you can make him still be the Messiah because maybe maybe the prophecies were not accurate. So then Jesus, well, but here's the thing. I'm changing my question now. Because let's say the prophecies were through a veil. They were not accurate.
Yes.
How would you ever know whether or not Jesus was the Messiah if he doesn't have to accurately fulfill any prophecy? Like if he could just vaguely fulfill some nebulous, he did something and we're still talking about him. Like, how does that make him the Messiah?
Because when I believe the story, things work out. You know, there's enough circumstantial evidence to know.
I disbelieved it and after believing it for 30 plus years, I disbelieved it and things continue to work out. I'm no more blessed and no more burdened than I was when I was a believer.
Yeah.
So how does things working out make it?
How does that feel? Like, I know we did that before, but does that feel like weird? Like,
oh yeah,
it's gotta feel weird. Like,
I hate to curse so much in one episode, but it's a total mindfuck to have told yourself your entire life that you can't live without Jesus, you can't breathe without Jesus, you can't succeed without Jesus, you can't and then find yourself sans Jesus and nothing changed.
Yeah,
it's like, what the hell? Like what's going on? Yeah,
it's got to be scary, right? Is it like a little bit scary sometimes?
No,
like a little bit.
It makes you look back and say, you mean I could have always been like I am now? I could have always relied on myself. I could have always, dug deep and found out how resourceful and how talented and creative and whatever Jesus motivated me in a lot of ways. The story, I was not a rapper before Jesus. Anytime I tried to rap before Jesus, it was just curse words every other word.
Yeah.
Finding out the gospel, falling in love with the gospel message and wanting to retell it and tell it well, I became an excellent writer and rapper.
Yes, 100%.
You talked about my book, right? Being well written. All of that is a result of me looking at this Jesus story, understanding it, and wanting to tell it better. It honed my communication skills. So it's useful even if it's not truthful. So I look back now and I'm like, I look at the difference between me then and me now, and I say, dang, Jesus was the motivating factor to get me to tap into things that were already here, latent potential that was already here. Jesus was the focal point to help me tap into it. But other people tap into that latent potential through different means.
Are you okay with living in a objectively meaningless world? And you tap into that a little bit in your chapter, but I don't want to dig too deep into that. But like, you're cool with that?
So I'll say two things about that. Are we living in an objectively meaningless world? We might be. I cannot say that because I'm a subject in this world. I'd have to be the object or know that there was no object to say. And I don't know that there's no God or no objective me. I don't know that there's not. I don't think there is because I've never been introduced to one outside of the Bible that I am now debunking. That was the only thing that I thought was objective. Now that I know that that's not, maybe there is still some objective meaning. I don't think I have access to it, and I don't think we as a species do. So there might be objective meaning. I don't know that we have access to it. But in the absence of that objective meaning, it's not scary to not have it, because what that means is, then we have to and we get to come up with our own subjective meaning. I'm going to unfreeze in a second. I was frozen, a bugged out face. But all that means is we have to and we get to come up with our own subjective meaning. And then we have to convince each other to accept that meaning, or at least don't use your liberty to trample on my meaning. And I won't use mine to trample on yours. And if we do, we're going to have a problem. That's the world that we live in. And to me, that's just reality. So it's not scary to not have objective meaning. As a matter of fact, it's better because if you're honest, the objective meaning that you get from the Bible, it's sort of elusive and sort of like, I don't get that. I don't see how that's supposed to mean much.
I mean,
for you. What's the
Mhm.
objective meaning to you?
I guess a basic way to put it would be to serve God, but a more explicit way of doing
Mhm.
that looks like loving the neighbor as ourselves and loving the infinite intelligence that made us. Kind of that
Why?
basic golden rule. I feel like that's what we were created to do. You know, it's the light
But
side of the
why?
force. I don't know. That's beyond us, but it comes from an intelligence. I would say
But you
that.
see what I'm saying, though, right? You don't even know why you exist, other than love my neighbor as myself and love the objective. But you don't have no. Like, if God is perfect and has no need, God didn't need to create. You can't even say God wanted to create, because to want means you have a need that you haven't fulfilled yet. So you have no idea why you even exist, which means you really don't have access to an objective meaning, even in your theistic worldview. You don't even know why God made a you or a us or a this.
Well, if somebody makes a video game, I feel like they could kind of set the rules and parameters and the
No, they
meaning
can
for the
set the
video game.
rules. They can set the rules, but the meaning. What's the meaning? And once again, I don't know that you've tapped into meaning as a Christian. You just tapped into duty. Because I'm here, I'm supposed to love my neighbor and love the deity. But you haven't
Yeah,
tapped into meaning, just
I,
duty.
I feel like love is a metaphysical force, though. Like when I really meditate in love, you feel this form of completion.
Mhm.
All of my meanings would be very like new agey sounding. You know what I mean? Like I feel like love is like the soup that we all live in. Evil probably possibly exists so that you can experience that love. Why God allows that? Maybe He does have a need. You know what I mean? But maybe that's okay. Maybe that's doesn't make it imperfect. Maybe that's part of the process. And maybe it
To
has
be
different
perfect is to
levels.
be complete. Like, can something be more perfect?
But if you had complete perfection,
Mhm.
what if you decided I want to do something different? Let me put myself in all these little bitty people and put them in Grand Theft Auto and see what they come up with. And maybe they'll discover
And let them
love, and the
kill each
power of
other
it.
and harm each other
It's
and
pretty bad. Pretty rough game, man. It's pretty rough. Pretty
yeah.
got some pretty awful
uh,
levels for certain people.
yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
But even
Any
those people,
mhm.
even those people, man, people who are way less materially blessed, even they find a way to, and they put us to shame, but they find a way to be thankful sometimes. I hate that they're in those circumstances. I think part of what we're supposed to do is get them out of those circumstances. I think that's part of what Jesus taught, lift up the poor, love thy neighbor,
Mhm.
story of Lazarus, story of sheep and goats.
Mhm.
I think his if we did that, if we walked in the kingdom of heaven, we would transform the earth into a heaven on earth, you know?
Do you think it's possible? This is my last question for you. Do you think it's possible that maybe, because maybe you're right, like the Jesus story made me become a creative, made me become more compassionate, made me think about my fellow man, not really for their sake, for God's sake. I wasn't really
Mm,
doing things to be nice. It was doing it for God's sake. I was loving you in Jesus's name. I wanted to
yeah.
show you that your creator cared about you, so I would give you a meal. So once again, that wasn't even really my love. I was trying to be a conduit for God's love.
Uh-huh.
Once I lost belief in God, I didn't stop loving people. I just had to look within myself and say, damn, so now what are you going to do? Now that you can't piggyback off of God's love to love somebody, but you know what ended up happening? I
What?
ended up helping more people, because I'm like,
Uh-huh.
damn, I can't just pray for people now, because I don't think anybody's going to answer that prayer. I've got to answer whatever prayer I would have prayed. And it made me more compassionate. It made me more giving. It made me more all kinds of things. Do you think it's possible, even though good has come from the Jesus story, that maybe without the Jesus story, we'd tap into even more good because we wouldn't have that to fall back on? You think that's possible?
I think certain individuals can evolve from the
Mhm.
Jesus story, and maybe they have to because there's so much
Mhm.
humanness attached to that story. So maybe God will push them out so that they can evolve,
Hmm.
and eventually it could become whole or evolve into something else. You know what I mean? But it doesn't. You're. I look at it as you're evolving from the Jesus story, not apart from per se. You know what I mean? He got you too much at the right space, so it's all in there already. And now you're just evolving it. You have to get away from the noise. I don't mean to like shape your narrative like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm just
I get it. I get it. Because I talk to those of you who are familiar with the channel. You guys know my former co-host Jay Witt. We talk about this all the time. We talk, and then we could be talking about how we deal with women, how we deal with all kinds of stuff, and it'll come up like, yo, I think this is a holdover from my Christian past. So there are ways about me today that I get from my Christian past. But here's what I will say. Those parts of me only come from where Christianity overlaps with humanism.
Yeah.
Wherever Christianity has an overlap with humanism, it's going to look like, hey, you're still a Christian. I'm not. It's just that as a humanist, I don't have to change this part about me because Christianity got that part right.
But I hate to say this, but humanism is just diet Christianity, though. You know, I hate to say, I kind of love to say it, but I hate to, not to be offensive. But
I don't have a comeback for that, but I'm going to come up with one.
For sure.
Nah, I appreciate that. Hey, I got somebody else waiting in the queue. Any last words? You get the last word.
No, good talking to you, man. Everybody check out the book and the audio book.
I cannot wait to talk to you about the morality chapter, because that's why you got the book in the first place, right? Was for that particular chapter.
Absolutely. The audio book. Yeah, I already had the digital book.
Yeah.
All right. We'll talk soon, man.
I look forward to kicking it with you, man. Much love. Peace.
Sure. Peace.
All right. Amias, thank you for the $5 super chat. Says, one step towards deconstruction for me was the realization that all prophecies about Jesus were out of context and we pretended like it was okay. I'm going to save my reaction to that comment. I am. But thank you for sharing that. So let me just say this before I bring our next guest in. I'm reading a book. I told you guys I'm reading a book right now. There's a brother who deconverted a couple years ago. He was vice president for a world-renowned evangelistic ministry. You all know the ministry. I'm not going to say it yet. Wrote a lot of their tracts, a lot of their curriculum. But he deconverted. And the major reason for his deconversion was he was an apologist. He was going around the world. I mean, I can't wait for you guys to read this book. It's incredible. But at some point, he challenged himself to justify the Old Testament or Hebrew Bible prophecies about Jesus. And once he began that study, everything unraveled for him. And he's walking methodically through that process. It's almost as if Justin from Deconstruction Zone, I know he's working on a book, but what I'm reading from this other guy, it's almost like somebody working through Deconstruction Zone's whole presentation. But this dude is so methodical with it. It's crazy. Why am I saying that? Because as Amias just said in the super chat, the things Christians have had to do with the prophecies of Jesus over the centuries, over the millennia, is so unfair. I remember being in seminary. I got to get to this call. I'm sorry, y'all. I remember being in seminary and seeing how poorly the New Testament authors were taking stuff from the Old Testament and trying to make it fit as a prophecy for Jesus. I got offended for Jews. I was like, every Jewish person I ever said, oh, see, they just mad because they rejected the true Messiah. Da, da, da. I felt so horrible. I wanted to go back to every one of them and tell them I'm sorry. Not that I wanted to become Jewish, because I don't think that the Bible's true. But I was like, y'all have it. One of these days, I'm going to do a call-in, and the title is going to be, The Jews Were Right to Reject Jesus. Because they were. I've said too much. Let me go ahead. Mythos Boy says, we noticed. As a descendant of Eastern European Jews, Mythos Boy, correct me if I'm wrong on that. I'm pretty sure I got that right. He says, we noticed. You're not telling me anything new. All right. Sorry for waiting, Josh. Thank you so much. Welcome back to Ichabod. I enjoyed our last convo. Josh, welcome back to Ichabod.
Hey, how's it going? Ready? Good to see you.
Excellent, man. How you?
Good, good. I saw the prompt, and
Okay.
I've been
So
enjoying the conversation too. So I'll let you kind of continue.
Last time you didn't call about the prompt. You called because of something that was said in the episode.
Right. That's
this time
exactly
you're calling
right.
about the prompt. So I'm interested. But can you let folks know where you at? Are you theist, atheist, agnostic? Where you at with the God question?
I am a Bible believer, follower of Christ.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I enjoyed our conversation last time. Just your heart and your attitude. I'm looking forward to the convo. So what about the prompt? Christians love Jesus more than God. What about that made you want to call in?
Well, I was curious to ask, like, if somebody in a conversation just said that, I would lean in and say more about that. Like,
Okay.
what do you mean? You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to, you know, I don't want to pigeonhole what you're trying to say, formulate an argument against it, because I'm not sure I fully understand exactly
where I'm coming from.
What you mean.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with this, Brady.
Yeah. When I posted this on Facebook, I got several responses that I didn't even have in mind. I was like, yo, I gotta take that into account. I didn't think about that. I'll tell you how I meant it. And for those who watch the first 50 minutes, you already heard me say some of this, but I'll go a little bit deeper now. I think it is demonstrable that the Jesus who came on the scene in the first century, the Jesus who we're told was crucified under Pontius Pilate, the Jesus who we're told was resurrected on the third day and appeared to the 12 and then appeared to 40 people and then appeared to 500. That Jesus cannot be the Jewish Messiah for one simple fact. He did not do what the Messiah was supposed to do. And the way Christians solve that is they split the prophecies. They find the prophecies. There's about 39 prophecies in the New Testament that they say Jesus fulfilled. Some of them are direct prophecies, like this will happen. Some of them are just allusions where a verse says something, but it doesn't claim to be prophetic, but the New Testament author takes it and makes it apply to Jesus and says it's fulfilling a prophecy.
Right.
But all of them, when you go back and look, one of two things. Either it's severely out of context, and that's not what that Old Testament author was saying, or Jesus cannot have fulfilled it because it was either A, fulfilled in the past, or Jesus just straight up didn't do it. Or if he did do it, he did the mundane part of the prophecy. Like we talked about Zechariah 9:9, Micah 5:2, right? He's going to come from Bethlehem. He's going to come riding on the colt of a donkey. Jesus did those things. But in the context, when he comes riding on a donkey, he's going to usher in peace, all the nations, and he's going to put Israel back on top and put them back in their land. So he's not like going to come riding on a donkey, die, leave, and then come back in a couple thousand years and save Israel. No, he's going, and then it's not just that he doesn't do what the text says he's going to do. The New Testament authors don't even have him coming back to do the rest of the Zechariah passage. He's going to come back and do some other new stuff with the Gentiles and all of this. So anyway, I'm just saying that to say. And so here's what, to get to your question. If it could be demonstrated that Jesus did not do what these prophecies said he was going to do, would you as a Christian say, oh, well, then I guess Jesus can't be the Messiah. Let me go back to waiting for whoever the true Messiah is going to be? Or would you just give up on the whole enterprise, or would you just stick with Jesus? What would you do? Like, whether or not you believe what I just said about those passages, if it could be demonstrated that Jesus didn't do it, so he can't be the Messiah, what would you do with Jesus? What would you do with the Bible at that point?
So just so I'm hearing you right, if it was proven that the prophecies of the Old Testament were in fact not fulfilled by historical Jesus, then would I reject Jesus, or what would I do with Jesus at that point?
Would you reject Jesus? And I'm more interested in, because I think rejecting Jesus seems to make sense if he doesn't do the stuff. If you did do that, would you stay on board with, but I know a Messiah is coming because God split the Red Sea, God sent the prophets? Would you stay on board looking for whoever the true Messiah is, or would you something else? Whatever the answer could be.
That's interesting, because I think what I'm trying to do is connect that question, because I heard you say that question a little bit ago, connecting that question with the prompt of Christians love Jesus more than God.
Here's how I would connect it. If you would, for whatever reason, one of the two things, if you say Jesus does not fulfill those prophecies, but I'm going to stay a Jesus worshiper, to me, that's evidence that you love Jesus more than the God that sent the prophecies about Jesus, because he didn't fulfill the prophecies, but here you are still clinging to Jesus. That's one.
I see the logic.
If you don't say, oh, well, then if it wasn't Jesus, then there must be another Messiah that I should be waiting for. If you don't go waiting for whoever the true Messiah is, then that's still proof that, oh, do you love the Jesus guy more than you love the God who told you about a Messiah in the first place?
Okay. Do you mind if I answer a question with another question?
However you feel.
Okay. Because sometimes that comes off as like, man, why is this guy being a jerk?
No, it's all good. I got you.
So again, like I forgive me, I have not read your book.
All good.
Would you describe yourself as atheist or agnostic, or what camp or category? How would you describe your?
I'm agnostic as it pertains to knowledge. I'm atheistic as it pertains to belief. So I don't know that there is no God, but I don't think I have evidence to believe in a God.
Okay.
I think the answer to the question of why is there something rather than nothing is something that we haven't figured out yet. We haven't come up with yet. We may not even have the tools to imagine that answer yet.
Man, yeah. Like I used to be really afraid of the word agnostic as a believer in Jesus, right? And really afraid of the word atheist. And fear. I mean, it's kind of hard to admit that, but like that was my experience of that. But I think the more life I have lived, and I know you commented last time, it doesn't look like I've lived a lot of life, but you about what 3-4 years older than me, something like that. So we're close, Zennials. But the what I was going to say is the more life that I live, the more I just get curious about things. And I think I would describe myself as agnostic to a lot of things, because there are a lot of things that I don't know. And our last conversation, I said, I described it by using the word mystery. I think there's a lot of things that are mysterious. And what that does to me is makes me agnostic to those things. It doesn't shake my belief. It doesn't shake what I have faith in, the substance of the things that I hope for, the evidence of the things I can't see. But it's not blind faith, because, as I said, the more life I live, the more I have experience of what I would call joy. And I'm speaking of joy in the sense that maybe C.S. Lewis, Surprised by Joy, would speak about joy, or even an old influence 20 years ago, John Piper, when he speaks about Christian hedonism. So that has been, and I know that's humorous to you.
No, I'm laughing because I don't know if I ever practiced Christian hedonism. I got his book, Sex and the Supremacy of Christ. I remember I was dating a woman. One time. We had a hard time being celibate, and so we got the book, Sex and the Supremacy of Christ, from John Piper. That didn't help at all. But I went from trying to be a Christian hedonist to just being a hedonist. So when I hear that term, I'm just like, yeah. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would think that motivation would be tough to follow through on a Piper book. I mean,
I was trying to get there.
Yeah, I hear you. I think I want to make sure that I'm honest with you, and I like keep myself accountable to answering your question. So the reason I ask about atheist agnostic is because there are some things that I don't fully understand in Scripture. And I'm not willing to say this is false. I am willing to say I need to understand more, and I don't know it all. So I can't do that if I stay in an echo chamber and just talk to people who think like me and look like me. So, you know, that's kind of where I am on that. Like, I would say that if I had definitive proof and definitive evidence that Jesus own claims about himself were the claims of a con artist or the claims of a lunatic, just somebody who wasn't right in the head. You know, who was the author that wrote was it Josh McDowell? Maybe, I don't know who it was.
Evidence that the man's averted?
Not that one. Jesus, it's More Than a Carpenter.
Okay.
The whole idea of the three options with Jesus claims about himself. He's either Lord, he's a liar, or he's a lunatic.
Okay.
So if I was given definitive evidence that Jesus was a con artist, then I may end up in a similar place.
Because this is the kind of show that it is, I don't know what you want to do. I could give you some of that evidence right now and just see what you think about it. Because maybe your response to it would help somebody else who's like, I don't know how I would respond to that. Like maybe you have a response. I don't know. Like, would you like to look at some passages?
Sure. I mean, again, I'm not afraid of a thought experiment or a question.
I love it.
Or diving in curiosity.
So you're on your phone. Will you have the ability to turn to passages, or should I just pull it up and read it?
Yeah, pull it up and read it.
Okay. So the idea is if you could find, because I had a bunch of other passages in the Old Testament that New Testament authors say Jesus fulfilled, that he doesn't. But rather than do that, you're saying, well, if you had evidence that Jesus said things out of his own mouth that shows him to be either a liar, con artist, or lunatic, or something other than Lord, that might give you something to think about. Let's go to Matthew. I'm going to go to Matthew. There's a couple places, and I normally go to Mark, but I'm starting to favor the Matthew passages more. Matthew chapter 16.
I can see why you would like Matthew more.
Why do you think?
The tax collector, he was about, bro, this isn't fair. You know, I think about the parable. Actually, I heard a sermon recently about the parable of the the workers in the field that
Mhm.
some came at the beginning of the day and worked through the heat of the sun, and then others came at 5 o'clock, and then by the time they got to work, they maybe spent 30 minutes in the field, and they all got a day's
Got
wage.
the same wage. Yeah.
And that parable is only in Matthew. I didn't know that. The other gospel writers didn't include that. So.
Maybe as a believer, those reasons might have meant something to me. The reason why I like Matthew more than Mark now is Matthew, I think, has about, what is it, something like 98% of Mark is in Matthew. 97, some high number like that of Mark is in Matthew, but then Matthew adds a whole lot more. And by adding more, it's almost like Jesus, forgive me for saying this, is going to sound blasphemy a little bit. Jesus puts his foot in his mouth in Mark, but Matthew puts many more feet in Jesus's mouth. And so I used to go to the Mark version of this passage until I realized the Matthew version is like, nah, it's just more feet in the mouth here.
Okay.
But I'm going to look at Matthew 16. I'm sorry, what did I say? 16?
I can't remember. I thought you said 20 something.
No,
Maybe
Matthew 16.
Okay.
And I think it's verse 26, if I'm not mistaken. 26, 27. All right. So you can read for more context if you want. Matter of fact, maybe I will go back. I'll go back to verse 25. I'll go back to verse 24 just for a little bit of context. Matthew 16, verse 24 to 28. Okay. Then Jesus said to his disciples, if anyone wants to become my follower, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life because of me will find it. For what does it benefit a person if he gains the whole world but forfeits his life? Reading from the NET version, by the way, back in verse 26. Or what can a person give in exchange for his life? Verse 27. For the Son of Man will come with his angels in the glory of his Father, and then he will reward each person according to what he has done. I tell you the truth, there are some standing here who will not experience death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. And so the question can be asked, did the people who heard Jesus say that the Son of Man was going to come with the glory of the Father and the angels and reward each person according to what they have done? Did the people that heard Jesus say that, did they die? Or are any of them still left on the earth today?
Oh, no. And I would be curious, not to try to wriggle out of this, but I'm curious what death Jesus was speaking of there. Because biblically, there is discussion of a first death and a second death. Eternal
did they
separation
die the
from
first
God,
or the second?
the absence of God.
Right, but I guess so. Maybe you're saying Jesus was talking about the second death. Like you guys are going to experience the first death, but you won't experience the second death until you see me coming with the angels.
Right, and I'm entirely off the dome spitballing with you right now because and kind of the anchor that I go back to as these are ancient texts and there are so many contexts, both cultural and historical, that I do not understand. And I have not taken time to, study those cultures and that history to that level of depth where I would understand it in the same way that the intended readers of the time in the first century would understand it.
Well, let's try to do that for the thought experiment.
Okay.
The people that are hearing Jesus, because we don't hear about a second death until you get to the book of Revelation, when you get the lake of fire. That's the second death. So the people that are hearing Jesus say this, what do you think they thought he meant when he said, I'm going to come with the glory of the Father, the angels, and reward each person according to what they've done. And I tell you the truth, there are some standing here right now who will not die, will not experience death until this takes place. What do you think they thought he meant?
They may have been confused. And I know what I just said is that cultural context and historical context, people of that day and that time may have known exactly what he was talking about. So it's possible they thought he was speaking about just physical death, the end of breathing and respiration and heartbeat and brain activity. And then other people saw that happen, somebody
would you at least
there.
So hold on, because there's a few things that can maybe help. Well, maybe I was going to try to help your point because I'm thinking of other passages. I don't know if it does help though, because I'm thinking about in John, right? This is why I think Jesus must have been a real person who said these things that didn't pan out, because you see them what looks like trying to excuse or make up for why things didn't happen. Because Jesus is walking, and at one point Jesus says to one disciple about another one, what is it to you if I want him to remain until I return?
Right. Yeah.
And
then
the author says Jesus did not say that this person would live until he returned. He only said, what if? But then the author's like, but that's how the rumor got started that this person wouldn't die until Jesus returned. So it's almost like the author of John sticks a what if in Jesus's mouth to make up for the fact that people are dying that weren't supposed to die.
Okay, that's an interesting interpretation of it. Yeah, I can see the logic, right? Yeah, and maybe you and the listeners view this in me as a total cop-out, but I do keep coming back to like who this man was, and the claims that he made. And the fact that, again, logically, the nature of God being outside of time, the nature of an infinite being, if you would, if we can presuppose that there is a creator, then, and that creator is in nature as described in the scriptures, that he's outside of time. That, again, logically makes sense to my brain. And the fact that there are things about his nature and his character that won't make sense to my brain. And we even see that logically coming to pass from Old Testament to New Testament. And again, that's just my understanding. So I see you like, okay, I'm
having all kinds of thoughts. I'm just like,
yeah, just kind of picking it apart, and that's okay.
Well, not picking it apart. I want to help you be consistent with what you're saying, because so think about this, right? In the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, God gives Israel, here's how you know that a prophet is not sent by me. A false prophet who,
if it doesn't happen, it's a false prophet.
If it doesn't happen,
right,
is a false prophet. And what are they supposed to do with the false prophet?
They're supposed to stone him, right?
Stone him, right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. This is why I say Christians love Jesus more than God, because the God that you're saying in the Old Testament told us about himself, also told you what to do with a false prophet, somebody who says this is going to happen, and then it doesn't happen. And rather than obey what that God is saying, you're sticking with Jesus over that God.
You know what, Brady? I am going to dive into, my research of Matthew 16:26 6,
Uh,
25,
16, 26, and 27.
the whole chapter. Okay, we'll go there.
Yeah, well,
But,
and there's several more, but there's a lot more of those.
Yeah,
those
I have. As I've read that, I have had the same thought before. Like, hold on, taste death. Hold on, some of those people sitting there dead now, and the second coming hasn't happened. I get the logical argument that you make there, and that makes me curious. It does not in itself make me say, all of my experience in life as a believer is a sham and Jesus was a con artist. So
yeah. And I want to respect that, but I sort of want to foreshadow for you so that you're not completely shell-shocked, but some of this you have to do on your own. But I will foreshadow for you, that's one of so many passages like that.
Yeah.
So I just, you know what I mean? Like that's the only reason why I'm where I'm at. Because if it was just one passage, could probably find a way to deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So my conversion experience was when I was 11 years old in a very white Southern Baptist church. Right. So like it's almost like it was George Bush and Jesus.
Hold on, Josh. I'm sorry, real quick. Hey, I see some stuff going on in the chat. Do I need to block Wesley Curry? Is that what's happening? Y'all tell me right now. Somebody just say, yeah, get him out of here. Put a yes in the chat. Because my admins may be off doing something right now. So yeah, okay. I've seen enough.
Yeah, I can't see the chat. So.
Wesley, if you want to get your act together and come back, I'm gonna put you on timeout for the time being. You can come back in a couple of days if you get your act together. We'll see. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Please,
well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, to sum it up a little quicker because I can tend to ramble. My experience growing up as a believer, from 11 years old to now 46 years old, I have in the last, I would probably say the last 20 years at some level, I have gone through deconstructions of parts of my faith that I accepted naively as a child because of, again, white Christian nationalism. Like that definitely is the air that I breathed growing up. And it still causes issues in my family, of course. And
shout out for the shirt. Somebody in the chat earlier when they saw your shirt was like, "Yo, love that shirt. Appreciate that."
Oh yeah. This is shout out to Mahogany Mommies on Instagram. If you see her, check her out. Okay. Support her stuff. She's awesome. So the things that I've had to deconstruct over the last 20 years have been how Christianity and Scripture has been co-opted and used in the most evil and destructive and harmful. Like, I can't say enough negative words about how the ways that the Bible and just how that has been used to oppress people and systems that have been created. And I am a student of the things that I'm talking about right now. I'm not a professor. and again, that's part of the deconstruction that I've had to do.
Mhm.
So I've read the Bible through cover to cover every year for the past maybe 4 or 5 years. And having been a follower of Christ since I was 11 years old, and only the last 4 or 5 years started like, just let me read through the entire text, because I'm tired of being asked questions or coming up with questions of my own that I don't have answers to. So that practice has allowed me to deconstruct things in my faith. But what the end result of that for me has been that the core of it has been stronger.
Gotcha.
The experiences that I've gone through, relationship wise, and dealing with people, yeah, I definitely wouldn't have made it through without an anchor
Yeah, I get you.
in wisdom and scripture. And you may say, well, there's maybe that's part of that Venn diagram that you were showing earlier. But I don't want to, because I got this right here, this skin, and I do not want to gather artifacts from another culture and just take what I like and just cherry pick. And then, because that's what my ancestors have given the world.
I said right before you came on, like when I realized that's what the New Testament authors were doing to Judaism. Like if these were Jews doing it, maybe it's less of an offense because it's their own scriptures. They can, Midrash and Pesher, all these different ways of the Hebrew rabbis were doing that all the time. They were seeing in the Hebrew Bible what they needed to see. None of the rabbis read it in context. So when Paul and the New Testament authors start doing what they're doing, they're not like doing this in a vacuum. The rabbis were doing this all the time, taking Old Testament passages and finding their updated, here's what I need it to mean for me and my context right now. But it was in seminary that I had a New Testament professor, try to tell me that when the New Testament authors did it, it was Holy Spirit led and different than what the rabbis were doing with Pesher and Midrash and all that. And I'm like, but it looks like the exact same thing. How are you trying to tell me that there's some controlling element with the New Testament authors when they're taking it just as out of context as the Hebrew rabbis did? And so even if it was Jews initially doing it, they still were taking it extremely out of context. But then it's even worse if they weren't Jews. Like we don't know who wrote the New Testament, but if they weren't Jews, then you do get into this is not even cultural appropriation. This is cultural decimation. This is, I'm going to take your scriptures, take your promises, your Messiah, and give it a whole new. And when I saw that, I didn't know which of the two it was, but I just knew it wasn't trustworthy. And I was embarrassed for me.
I got you. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you would say that Jesus and his followers were the problem more than the God the Father or the God of the Old Testament, the God of the Pentateuch.
I think logically, if you realize that, so here's what I think happened. I think Jesus really did claim to be the Messiah.
Right.
And really was killed by Rome. And his disciples really had a hard time with it. And I think rather than just do what other would-be messiahs did in that day when they got found out or put in prison or even killed, their followers would give up. I think Jesus's followers didn't want to give up. And they found a way to keep it going. And they found Old Testament passages and said, oh, I can get us a resurrection out of this passage, or I can get us out of this passage. And they saw their fellow rabbis doing similar things, but for different reasons. So, well, if you can do that, then I can do this with it. But all that to get to this point, to answer your question, I do think logically, if somebody claims to be a lover of God and a lover of the God of the Bible, then I think you would have to end up looking at the New Testament the same way Christians look at the Book of Mormons. It's an invalid, illegitimate addition.
I hear you. Yeah.
Onto that original core.
So would you say that for you, part of this unraveling leading to your deconversion was a realization, like a pattern recognition almost, of systems of oppression that we're still dealing with today that exist? Like, we've got basically 2026, the Voting Rights Act being rolled back in real time right in front of all of our faces. And like, how did we get here? And it's not that new oppression is coming about, it's just getting more sophisticated. Right?
I'm gonna make it a little bit deeper for you. Okay. So do you know who James Cone is?
I've heard the name. I couldn't tell you who he is.
James Cone he's been called the father of Black liberation theology.
Okay, yes.
Right. So Black liberation theology is reading the Bible and seeing anywhere God comes to work on behalf of the oppressed or the marginalized, seeing that pattern and saying wherever that happens in history, you can find God showing up for the oppressed. During the time of the writing of the Hebrew Bible, that oppressed people was Israel. Now, here's why I have a problem with that, as if they were the only oppressed people. They weren't. But James Cone said God showed up for Israel then, and in the first century, he showed up for the followers of Jesus. But anywhere else in history you see the oppressed, you can expect God to show up and redeem similarly. And then when he got to the 1960s and 70s, he said, today, that's Black people. Jesus is Black because God's always going to show up in the oppressed and for the oppressed. Now, when I was a Christian, that was heresy. That was, but once I began to see, oh, shoot, Jesus didn't fulfill these prophecies. So then what were they doing? I said, wait, the writers of the New Testament, they were doing the same thing that James Cone was doing in the 1960s. They were looking at these scriptures and finding a way to encourage themselves with a story of God showing up for us today. That's what the writers of the New Testament were doing with the Hebrew scriptures. They didn't care about context, just like James Cone didn't care about context. As an evangelical, I looked at James Cone, even though he's Black and I'm Black, I would have said, heretic, that's not what the Bible says. You're taking it out of context. You need to practice exegesis, not eisegesis. But I'm like, yo, maybe James Cone was on to something, because this is what people have historically. And last thing I'll say, when you go back to the Hebrew Bible, I think that's what they were doing. They saw themselves oppressed by Persia, by Assyria, by Greeks, and they needed a story about how God was going to show up for them. And that's what the Bible is. Not that it's true, but this is how they encouraged themselves. And ancient peoples did this all the time with their myths and their stories about the gods. When I saw that pattern, it made me say, I get it now. I loved the Bible even more because I'm like, I see what they were doing. I don't believe it, but I get it now.
Yeah, because it's interesting because my connection to you and even this podcast and desire to call in and talk to you is because I listened to your music when I was in college. Last time I told you I met you in person, it was at a friend of mine's house you guys were staying at when you were touring in Charlotte. And so it just, like, I remember dapping you up and being like, oh, I met Brady and, and all that kind of stuff, and there's Ambassador and Tonic and, True Life.
So that was back in 2002, didn't you? Was
something like that? Yeah. Around 2001, 2002. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, and like I look back in my Instagram, and I followed you on Instagram since something like 2014. So, you know, when I think I saw like a Facebook video one day pop up, and I heard the deconversion moment, or the going public, I should say.
Yeah, that was going public. Yeah,
right, because it had been brewing for a long time, I'm sure. And the thing that I saw and heard the most was pain. And I don't take that lightly with anybody, no matter if I agree with them or disagree with them. If I see pain, suffering, especially if it's a result of oppression, I feel compelled, not out of obligation, but out of love, to sit with that, to listen, to be curious, to ask questions. So
yeah,
I don't in any way delegitimize any of your thought processes or logic, or I wouldn't. I think I would be a fool to sit here on your show and say, that's nonsense, Brady. You know, I think that would be pretty arrogant. You know, I think we can see how we land in very similar places on kind of a lot. But you know, the motivation is different. But I just want to say, man, I see you. Like, I
appreciate that.
I see where you're kind of, it kind of put some flesh on the bones for me a little bit tonight.
Got you. Yeah. Hey, are you still in Charlotte or no? Or were you not
I
in
am.
Charlotte?
I'm in like the very north tip of Charlotte.
Okay. So look, I don't know how you feel about this at all, but my guy Chip Payette, Chip said if Josh is still in Charlotte, I'd love to meet him and continue this conversation. Yo, Josh, Chip is a dope dude. Yo, like we've been kicking it on my Facebook, and then he called in for the first time, I think last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. He's a dope dude. If you want to kick it in the chat or maybe message me on Facebook, I would love to connect you with Chip. He's just a dope dude, strong believer for many, many years, and then had similar experiences like me, but just a great guy to talk to. If you ever wanted somebody local just to chop it up with, I would love to connect you with Chip.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So I think you've got my Instagram and Facebook information, so we can definitely connect there.
Wait, how do I have it?
I thought we were Facebook friends, or maybe I just follow you on Facebook.
If you can, because I'm not going to be able to. If you can remember, if you do follow me on Facebook, that's the site I'm most active on. DM me, and then I'll make a connection with you and Chip on there. Yeah, that would be dope. But hey, I really enjoyed talking with you. The sincerity, the thoughtfulness. I'll give you the last word. Any last words? Before we wrap this one up?
Yeah, man. I just I think it's so important to lean into questions. I spent a lot of my life being afraid of asking hard questions, and that will lead you into more hard times than it will help you through them. It elongates things that don't have to be that bad.
Ripping the Band-Aid off versus trying to do the slow. But no, questions, man. Questions are good. I think one thing that everybody who's had this journey, and we all journey, we don't know where we're going to end. I always just encourage people. I never tell people where to end. I just encourage them to journey well. But one of the things that people always say in this journey is facing the questions was the best thing that they could have ever done. And wherever you land as a result of that, whether it be stronger faith or whether it be somewhere else, just to know that you didn't run from the questions, I think you respect yourself a lot more just for having asked them.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate the time.
Hey, feel free to call in anytime. But like I said, DM me on Facebook and I would love to connect you with Chip and we'll keep it going.
All right. All right. Thanks, Brady.
Much love to you, man. Yep. Talk with you.
All right.
Peace. So my sister said, and I agree. She said we got to do a PHL meetup. We got to do a Philly meetup, and that's true. So Thurgood is one of the Icopodians supporters. Thurgood was part of the Houston get together. I've only done one get together so far, but I actually do need to get some more cities on board and do some more meetups in cities. So if you are one of the Patreon supporters, let me know what city you're in. Matter of fact, throw your city in the chat, because I do need to start thinking about coming to certain cities and just getting together. All we did in Houston, we had brunch. We just sat around a big old table, had a great brunch, and just talked. So I'm not saying this is like the start of conferences or anything like that, but throw your city in the chat. Maybe I'll come through some cities and we'll just break bread together. But yeah, Philly, I need to do a Philly get together. So we'll see what happens with that coming up. If you want to call in, I'm normally on for 3 hours. It's been 2:20 so far. So you still got time. I'm going to put the link in the chat again. If you're on Facebook, it's the top comment. If you're on Instagram, it's in my bio. And if you're here on YouTube, I just put it in the chat, or you can scroll all the way up and we will figure out some things. Call in. All right, so we got Memphis, BBQ on you. Okay. And we got Dallas. We got St. Louis. Let me take a screenshot of this real quick. Who else? Put your city in the chat. All right. Oh, Vegas. Let me take another screenshot of that. And I'm actually supposed to be going to Vegas soon. My nephew is having another little one, so I'll be headed out there in a few months. So maybe I will try to get that going. Bogota. What's that? Colombia? Where's Bogota at? Do I know my geography? I think Bogota is Colombia, but I may be wrong. No, that's Colombia. Okay. Nice. Theists, Christians, where you at? The prompt says Christians love Jesus more than God. And I think I can demonstrate that. I think I have demonstrated that. But maybe you want to call in and tell me how I'm wrong. This would be a chance to do that. Otherwise, I'm going to go and enjoy my day and let y'all do the same. But I will be back on tomorrow. I'm typically on Monday and Tuesday. I try to get on at least by 4 unless something prevents me. Who said Bogota is the winner so far? Because it's so far. That's the only thing it's the winner of, is being so far. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to do that. Christians love Paul more than Jesus. I think I'm going to have to do that, but I want to do some study first because I need to have my ducks in a row when I do that one. The Patreon link, if you're on YouTube, it's in the description of the video. Or I can scroll up. I'm sure my unique Monique has posted it in here once or twice. But it definitely is in the description of the video. And if you just go to the Icopod YouTube page, you'll see it there as well. And a few of you all have sent me episode suggestions, like titles for episodes. You can still send me those on DM me on Facebook. I'm trying to figure out some of y'all episode descriptions. They be sort of like good topics, but the wording, I got to figure out how to word it and get the topic together. But yeah, feel free to send me those. I'll be back on tomorrow. It's already going on 7, so I think I'm going to go ahead and call it. We had 2 really good calls today. Let's try to get back on tomorrow. Love you guys. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And I will talk with you guys then. All right. James got in just as I was about to sign off. Much love to you, bro. All right. I'm out of here. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.